series. We have Tarek Shlaifa, our Senior Program Manager from Flat6Labs Tunis. He will be talking about building a startup in Silicon Valley with Amira Yahyaoui, founder of MOS, a platform that helps students find grants and scholarships. Amira is a Tunisian entrepreneur, blogger, and human rights activist. She's also founder and president of a Bosala, the Transparency and Accountability NGO. On the agenda today, we'll have the interview for about 30 minutes, and then we can take questions from the attendees either through YouTube in the comments, or you can submit the questions straight in Zoom, and we'll take all these questions, or as many as we can, in the last 20 minutes. I'll leave the floor for Tarek now to get it started.
Thank you very much, Sarah. As you might have noticed, we switched places. So I'm back in Silicon Valley, and Amira jumped back into Tunis. I would like to thank our guest. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you with us, Amira, to talk about your experience as an Arab woman founder and creating your startup in Silicon Valley. And I think this will give us a lot of insights on people out here that are either founders of startups or supporting startups and would like to learn more about your experience. Thank you very much, Amira.
Sure. Thank you. I'm so happy, Aslema, and I'm so happy to be here with my heart. I am actually from this place, from Tatooine in Tunisia, the south, and can't wait to share everything.
Perfect. So if we can kick off, like, you can please feel free to send out, like, on your Q&A questions that you have. Please tell us where you're from, what you're doing. Are you an entrepreneur? Are you supporting startups? Are you a VC maybe? Please feel free to send your questions in the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer that. So I'll start off with my first question, kind of to kick it up. Amira, can you please tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and going from, I know, so how do you reinvent yourself as a person from a specific background and going into a new, different space altogether?
Yeah, so my background, I mean, I was born and raised in Tunisia. I went to public school. I went to Sadqeya, before that, Najrusia. I grew up in the city center in Marché Central, where some of you might know, the Tunisians here probably know the place, so Place Barcelone. And then I actually was pretty active against the dictatorship of Ben Ali when I was 14. So I was a blogger. So that was my first connection to the online world. You know, for me, it was the free space where you can express yourself, make friends, and build things that look impossible in real life, right? And so I was very noisy, I would say, at the time. So I became sort of an enemy. And when I graduated from Sadqeya, so in my high school, it's a long story, but I was kicked out of the country and ended up in France, where I was for many years an illegal immigrant. So in France, I actually always was looking up to France and Europe as the countries of human rights, and then ended up with a very racist policy against, you know, Middle Easterns and Arabs, and I was not allowed to have anything. So Tunisia took off my passport, so which means that I became stateless, and the French did not give me any asylum or any right. So in France, I had like a dual life, which was online. I was sort of a big deal. Like I had a real blog and people were like social media and everything. But in real life, I was actually very much struggling, working as a housekeeper, dog walker. I mean, there is no job I didn't do. And the worst part was that I was not allowed to go to college. So I sneaked myself into classes. I mean, all the years I went to college, and I studied, but today I don't have any degree. I actually have a baccalaureate, and I'm very proud of that.
That's a high school diploma for anybody from the
Which is
like
the
the
high
US.
school. I only have a high school diploma, and from there, I mean, Tunisia became a democracy. The revolution happened, and that's how I got my citizenship back. So I was allowed to go back to Tunisia, and I went back to Tunisia on January 15th. In Tunisia, you know, at that time it was chaos. No one had no clue what's going on, to be honest, and probably, and for sure not myself. I haven't seen my family for 7 years. I haven't put foot in Tunisia for 7 years. And, you know, just like when you leave, you're 19 and come back, you're 25, like just the world has changed and yourself changed. So in Tunisia, I think I was still in that mentality of I can only be a housekeeper while having an online life. And that's where international NGOs started reaching out to me to open their offices in Tunisia. And those are NGOs that I used to dream to join as anything, you know, as a cleaner. I used to like adore and really look up to Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. And they were like, do you want to open our office in Tunisia? I was like, me? How come, you know? And that actually made me jump, where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go work for any NGO. I'm going to create the first Tunisian NGO that is like built by Tunisia, but at the same level of a Human Rights Watch or an Amnesty International. And that's how I started Al Bawsala. So, and to be honest, like the beginning was exactly like a startup. We were working out of I think some Al Bawsala team members are in the attendees, so that's cool. And they remember some of them these days. So we used to work out of my grandma's apartment. We had nothing. We had like, I mean, no funding. And we basically, Al Bawsala was a very online NGO. Everything we did was online, and that was a big pride for me. And the second hire was technical. Third hire was also technical. And then Al Bawsala, you know, became such a big deal in Tunisia and very big. And today it's still standing with completely new team. I mean, I don't know even, like I sort of know the team because I'm still on the board, but I have no one who I used to work with is there. And we hired so many people during this period of time. And then, you know, one day I remember going to Al Bawsala, and it's just like, I'm done, you know, like the team was amazing. The impact was amazing. And myself, I was like, I need to build again, but I had no clue what.
Okay.
That's how Mom started.
So you built something very similar to a startup. So what we understand is that by Bawsala, your previous venture was very similar, but it was in a complete different space, which is human rights activism and monitoring. What probed you to kind of change? What was that? That sentiment that came in, and what made you kind of shift from a completely different business, from a different complete sector, and to like reinvent yourself in the education and tech space?
Yeah. Listen, it is, so it on paper, it looks very different. In my head, it's not at all. Here's something. I am obsessed, really obsessed by three things, and I think my whole life will be around them. And I really think about it as a triangle, which is I am obsessed with people. I love people. Actually, what I love the most in Tunisia are the people and not the beach. You know, I love people. I love technology. Like that's my natural habitat. That's where I want to be. That's where I want to build always. Like at Al Bawsala, even the team can say this. Like the projects I was the most excited about was like how do we make things accessible online, and like the live tweet and creating all of these things. And the third thing that I'm obsessed with is the idea of dignity, whatever that means, you know. So in Tunisia, I try to help in the dignity through accessibility, transparency, and accountability. And what is something that now I'm free of, sort of, and I'm sure people will ask about this a lot, is that I love all kinds of people. I am not attached to one citizenship or one space or one identity or one religion or one. I'm just obsessed by the 99%, I would say. I love building stuff for the 99%, which I put myself in. And my whole life was obsessed with Tunisia. I mean, I knew that my whole life will be dedicated to my country. I mean, I risked my life and my family's life for it, you know, and that was like the first thing I've done, and that's where everything I've done so far was. And the thing is that I really thought that Ben Ali will be still in power until I'm 70. And Tunisia will be a dictatorship until I die. So I always thought that my whole life will be dedicated to Tunisia, because really think of it as I'm not allowed to be anything, to think about anything outside of the country. And the thing is, I mean, somehow we got lucky, you know. So this happened before my 30th birthday, and I created Al Bawsala, and I, even if I'm not at all in Al Bawsala anymore, I mean, this is something I built, and I think that every day I am still contributing to the country through Al Bawsala, you know. But it is true that my dream was the world is bigger, and I want to also prove myself outside, you know, not only in Tunisia. And
then what broke you into Moz.com actually after this?
And I had no clue where to start it, actually. It was my investors who were like, you should do the jump and come to San Francisco. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it, you know, and I moved here. And I literally moved like this, like I left everything and I moved, and I left all my stuff, actually. Until today, I still don't have my stuff in here. It's still in like some lockers in Tunisia. But the thing is that when I came here, I discovered something else, is that I'm still connected to Tunisia, because there are entrepreneurs, students, engineers who reach out to me every day, because what I've been doing here is pretty unique for a Tunisian, and for actually even anyone from the Middle East. And I feel like I'm sort of opening the space and trying to bring in other people, because the game is here in the world. And so today I'm like pretty confident that, yeah, but just by creating an example and having the story is also contributing.
So Amira, can you tell us more for our audience? What is Moz.com? What are you tackling? And why did you choose Silicon Valley in the first place? So you had some people, so you had your network there, but tell us more about why Moz.com, why Silicon Valley?
So Moz.com, the idea of Moz.com is to help people build their path to dignity, and that through technology. So, which means that we unlock things that block people from progressing. And when I came here, that was the idea. And it was like basically a killer of bureaucracy. And that was like the original idea. And then I arrived here in San Francisco. So I had no network, actually. I had zero network in San Francisco. I knew nobody. My network was actually through a Tunisian who is now a board member, whose name is Khaled Ahliwi. I'm sure for everyone who's in the tech sphere in Tunisia knows him, because no one have came close to him in terms of like thinking and power and impact outside of Tunisia in terms of like technology. No one. And he's just an insanely impressive person. And he was the first believer in Moz. So he is a Tunisian. And Khaled is the one who introduced me. Khaled is an investor in Uber. And he introduced me to the co-founder of Uber, Garrett Camp, who was my first investor. And through Expa, where I work today, it's also an incubator. So when I came here, I had no network, but the idea of Moz was this general thing. I had no clue. Like I didn't even have an MVP, which for those who don't know what it is, it's a minimum viable product. Like I had nothing, and my deck was bad. And I remember, like I had no clue what means a deck. Actually, I had no clue what an MVP meant. But I had no clue about what is a seed round, the Series A, and investing, how investing works. I remember like really almost signing documents without understanding 90% of it, you know, and I had no clue about nothing. And I am good at pretending that I know and then Google.
Helps out. It's really useful. Google is your like investment advisor.
MVP, whatever. Yeah, sure.
So you're telling us to the audience that you came in Silicon Valley, you had some sort of an idea, not an MVP, so-so deck, one friend, and you went there and you wanted to launch your business. Is that what you're telling us?
No
money.
No money, no, zero. Okay. I had zero funding at the time. I mean, the funding was going, like I was supposed to sign it and everything. I was actually Tunisian, so I'm not allowed because of visa issues. So I had to come here, and then the money got wired and I had to hire my first hire. Also, hiring in a place where you've never been is not fun.
We'll get to that. Actually, I want to go deeper into like your first immersion in Silicon Valley. So like, did you face, so you lived kind of like the immigrant life in Paris, in France, as a Tunisian. I imagine when you came to Silicon Valley, people did not know even what a Tunisian was, or very limited notion of that. And so how was it being like an Arab founder? And obviously you already built a business before, but how was it second time around in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, it was I loved it. I mean, if you love uncertainty, which is me, and you know, I do a lot of like base jumping, and I jump out of planes and stuff like that. And I just love jumping in like in the void, and that's my thing in life. I love taking risks, and if the risks are not very high, it doesn't excite me. So yeah, I mean, when I came here, I could have succeeded or failed, and until today, like I'm talking to you as if I get it, but I didn't. You know, I can completely crash in 2 years, which is fine. Because the journey is where the fun is most of the time, and I'm not someone who builds. I don't build for like a specific number or a specific reason. I build for the experience and the journey, and changing people's life, and changing. And when I say changing people's life, is I'm as interested in the people that we're serving as much as the people that I'm working with. One of the biggest reasons why I think I am an entrepreneur is because I love building teams. I get all my joy from the team. I think some team members are actually in here also from Moss. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, that's very interesting. So you were telling me as well that you came in from a different background. And so how difficult was it for your first hire to be launching in a tech startup? Tell us if I'm wrong, but like little tech background in general and launching this business. How did you cope? Were you doubtful at times? Were you stressed? I mean, I know a lot of founders are stressed sometimes, like, what am I doing? Did you get this kind of feeling, and how did you cope with it?
Yeah, so no. Why? Because I felt like, I don't know what I should say it this way, but I felt like I was allowed to play. You know, so let me tell you a bit about, I think this will be interesting about what is actually, so I live in San Francisco and I work out of San Francisco, to the heart of the Silicon Valley. And let me tell you, I've never felt as much as home as here actually in my life. And this is like where there is the irrational home where you've been, where you were just born there, and you touched the smells, which is for me, Tunis Center. Like I only feel home in Tunis Center. I don't feel very much home elsewhere in Tunisia, and here, and this is the one I chose. You know, this is like analytical, and the reason why is that I would say like everyone has an accent. Everyone has an accent. Everyone comes from somewhere else. The greatest founders and the greatest CEOs of this place and the greatest engineers and CTOs and head of product and designers come from everywhere in the world. And this is a city that has zero racism. And you you are from San Francisco if you work in the tech space, and that's it. That's how the citizenship, the Silicon Valley citizenship is defined. It's not defined by being American or being white or being whatever. It just doesn't, it actually, it's one of the unique places when you are an immigrant, but that's the normal, that you are an immigrant. It's not that you are, actually, I tell you, in my team, there is one person from San Francisco. And whenever I say Alex is from San Francisco, people are like, really? You have someone from San Francisco? Like, that's so uncommon to have people from San Francisco. Of course, this is changing now, but it's just everyone from everywhere. And even Americans are from somewhere else. Now, is it challenging? Yeah, I mean, my English now is a billion times better than when I arrived. I mean, I lived in Tunisia and then went to France, so I had that shitty French accent. I was thinking very European, which is such old world. And I'm actually amazed because now we hired a team in Tunisia, and I'm shocked by the level of English and understanding of the US that the new generation is having versus mine and the one of like my parents. You know what? I mean, we never do conferences in English in Tunisia ever. This is my first ever conference in Tunisia, in English. Yeah.
So Amira, actually, regarding Silicon Valley, so Silicon Valley is often considered kind of like the place to be for any tech entrepreneur, and to be successful and to be well known. Do you really need to be in Silicon Valley to be successful? Do you feel like your success as a startup founder is tributary to the fact that you're in Silicon Valley? What do you think added success, and what do you necessarily need to be in Silicon Valley to have a successful startup?
I mean, or let's define success. Success in a startup is to find customers who buy your thing, and you are doing, I don't know, 10x or whatever, month over month or year over year. Okay. And if you are in the tech world, no, you don't need to be here. And actually, many companies are either not here or are nowhere because they are online. They are completely remote, like GitLab, like WordPress, Automatic, InVision, and a bunch of others. Why being here is interesting. Because this is, and many people hate it actually here, is that everyone works in the same thing. Like, there is one subject in here, which is technology, and everyone is crazy. Everyone is inventing the future, and no one feels weird. Like, I do feel weird when I see that I'm doing a webinar in Tunisia talking about, we're changing the world. It looks like, I mean, like we laugh about that. That's how it is. And it looks weird. And I remember even like, I've been in Tunisia, I created Al Bawsal. I mean, I got crashed by people because we were trying to do things that are not accepted, and you're not supposed to behave like that, and you're not supposed to say that, and you're not supposed to be like that. Here you have like zero of that kind of energy, and which is amazing. If you are able to really be physically somewhere else, but to be in your brain here, which I think is the future, like to really be obsessed and understand what's going on and follow what's new and really read the books and understand how it works and follow the companies and follow and watch the videos and listen to the podcasts. I think you can start anywhere and have impact anywhere. What I don't believe in, and this is Middle East, is if you are only centered about one country, because the market is still small. So if you are in Tunisia thinking to build a startup, you need to think about it as a Middle Eastern. The Middle East is your game, or Africa is your game. I would very strongly tell everyone to not do anything in Europe. I mean, And that could be the contrarian thinking, and we can debate it. But I think Europe is dead. Like, it's way too old. It's way in the past, and it's resisting those people who don't look like them and who want to who want to succeed. It's just that's where I will probably strongly recommend not to be.
Very, very, very interesting talks about actually thinking regionally from the get-go. If you're, I mean, I imagine Silicon Valley people are building the future and for the world probably, or they are already thinking about the world market.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need a market that is big enough. You need a market that is big enough, because 12 million is not even enough for an MVP. You know, it's very small. While why the US is very interesting is because it's 300 million people who speak the same language and they have the same culture. And so I know that we are different. And when we're Tunisian or Algerian or whatever, or Egyptian, we think we're very different from the other Arab countries. We're not. Like, let's stop the bullshit. It's the same region. And if you think about it as a region, it's actually a very good, I think of it as a very good region to invest, because people have purchasing power, especially the Gulf countries have very, very high purchasing power. There is capital, there is one language that can be understood, and there is an understanding of the same culture, even though we think it's very different on the big scale of things. It's not. Like, it's way more different to be from San Francisco and Idaho than, I think, from Egypt and Bahrain, you know, like, honestly. So yeah, really
totally
think about the region.
Totally agree. So I have a question for you that's kind of tricky for you. So you are actually successful in the terms that we actually define. You are already previously successful. I mean, you launched a big, like El Bausla, which is pretty big. You were tapped by many. You met maybe a lot of heads of states and the Davos and all of that. Do you need to be successful in Silicon Valley? Is that a prerequisite, or is it something where like you can go there with a fresh mind and innovation and go and?
Actually, the opposite. No, not at all. Actually, it's the opposite. I find it actually harder when you've already been successful to do it again, and then everyone is expecting for you to be like so amazing and 10 times more successful than the last time. While when you come and you're virgin, you everything is possible. Second thing is, this is a place where failure is loved and cherished and accepted. And it's very important to show that you've been through a hard time and that you've been struggling. Struggling is what makes amazing things happen. You know, like, I believe so much in the importance of hunger, of scarcity to build. And like, even today, like at Moz, I mean, we raised a lot of money, but we still are paid under market. And we're not paid as Facebook or Google. Well, maybe we can, but it's just not the same mentality, and we don't think the same. Second, in this place, everyone is new. Like, very few are actually repeated founders. Most founders are like 24 and 22, who just got out of college and have zero experience in life. So I don't think, to be honest, it's actually a it's very unique to have done something before.
Okay, so it's not a prerequisite, is what I understand, actually. So very interesting. So a lot of us, I mean, look at Silicon Valley. We see it through books. We see it through famous founders. We see it through Silicon Valley, which is a really cool HBO show. And we kind of have this kind of preconceptions of what Silicon Valley is. And so, and you also have a lot of articles. So, for example, there's one Wired article said Silicon Valley ruined the work culture. And people kind of questioning themselves about, is Silicon Valley really an El Dorado for startup founders, or is actually some place that is actually very hard for founders? Like the very slim barrier between work and life balance is very tough to manage. How do you identify yourself in that Silicon Valley culture?
Yeah. So what I love about this place is that I would say, like, all the good founders live with this syndrome of the imposter syndrome, and all the bad founders are imposters, are real imposters. Here's the game. You cannot build anything here if you're not willing to work your ass off. And by working your ass off, let me define working your ass off, which is very important. The first year at Moss, I worked at least 14 hours a day, every single day, weekend included. In the past 5 weeks, I never had a weekend off, not once. I do what is called, my weekend is hours. Like I have 4 hours in the weekend that I'm allowed to do something else because I'm working all the time. The team is here, and the team in Tunisia finishes at 1 a.m. Okay. You have to be willing to work, not hard, extremely hard. And I know there is all this bullshit about work-life balance, blah, blah, blah. Work-life balance is amazing. Get it, go work in a bank. You'll get it, or anything else, but you cannot be an entrepreneur. You won't, because other people are willing to work more than you and put in the hours. So you'll never get there. And work is also time. You actually need to work smart and hard. It's not, when we say, no, I work smart, I don't work hard. Yeah, you need to work smart and hard. And that's what is in an entrepreneur. So for people who worked with me know that I'm just obsessed with working. Like that's what I do. And I usually try to find a job where I don't feel like working, because this is what I want to do. I'm doing my hobby 24/7, right? But I'm working, of course I am, and my team is working, and the team is really working. It's no joke when I say we're working. So it is hard. Now coming here, is it easy? No, it's not. And a scale from 0 to 10, probably Silicon Valley is a billion in terms of how hard it is. So don't expect to come here and like everything to work out. It is not. I mean, I'm not saying it enough and not showing it enough, but no, it's insanely hard. Most people don't make it. 99% of the startups crash after the seed. I don't know how much after the seed, and then after the Series A, almost most people crash. But what is amazing is that you can do it again and do it again and do it again until you get there. And it's all about, it's like a marathon. It's not about who run the 47 the first 42 kilometers. It's who got that 300, I think, meters more and get to the finish line, and who arrived first. So you can run the 42 kilometers and not make it.
So very cool question. So I'm kind of hinting to the last webinar we had. So in Silicon Valley, everybody is looking for the mythical creature, which is the unicorn. So everybody's looking for that unicorn, and everybody's fundraising to become a unicorn. We had just recently Alex Lazaro, who wrote a really interesting book and came with us, the webinar called How to Out-Innovate. And he says startups need to be camels. They need to be resilient, and they need to actually work in very hard, extreme market conditions, especially now with this whole pandemic. What animal would you think would define kind of your business? And how would you, and why, what kind of traits are you looking for in that animal that defines you?
Question, but it's a very hard one. Okay, so I'll tell you the animal. I mean, I don't think we have it in Tunisia, but the animal that defines what I do is the raccoon. The raccoon is that disgusting animal that goes to the trash and eats in the trash. And why? The reason, actually, it's our logo. It's a raccoon. The raccoon is an animal that is able to go 25 floors up and cross highways and jump over anything to bring food to its family. And the raccoon has a capacity to find things that are healthy to eat in the trash. And I think of what we're doing is government is a huge trash, and there is good and bad in it. And it's insanely complicated to find the good. And that's what we do. We go, we bring the good and give it to people, and to which we call our family, which are our students. So yeah, I think we're
cool.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very cool. So I'll ask one last question before we kind of jump into the, so you just you worked in the beginning with Moss, and you built up the culture. You had your first investors, which you talked about, Garrett Camp, and then. So how did you build that credibility quickly enough so that you could pitch to big investors and actually fundraise for your next round? And can you tell us maybe a bit more about what happened afterwards and where you are now?
Seed round is the founder and the story who raised the money. Investors have no clue if your business is going to work or not. And so it's all about how well you tell the story, how much you make this person want your business to exist, and how much they want to work with you, and how much they think that you as a founder can make that story happen. So seed round, I mean, we raised $4 million $4 million in our seed round. And it was really, I mean, people invested in something that had 0 users. I had no users, like 0. We had no revenue, literally 0. I think we didn't even set up Stripe at the time. Like that tells you how much we had no revenue. And so that's where people invest, and they are looking for that, like, make me dream, you know, and the new thing. And if you're coming and doing another the same business, but just you made it pink instead of blue, no one is going to invest in it. This is very different for entrepreneurs who are thinking about creating things in Africa and in the Middle East, because I think actually a smart way to do is to take the very successful companies and do them and apply them to Middle East and Africa. I think that is a very, if I was a founder in the Middle East or in Africa, that's definitely something I would do. And there are like unicorns after unicorns that have been built just on that idea, which is taking something,
adapting a concept, existing context, and building it in the context.
Yeah, just a copycat. And so anyway, so that is something very different. Here you can't do that because actually all the new ideas are here, so you're just copying in the same market, which doesn't work. So we raised 4, and we raised with a bunch of people, and so 2 big checks who are like Gary Camp, Expa, and John Doerr, who is the guy who wrote about the OKRs, if you know the OKRs, objectives and key metrics and key results. And he is like a very known investor here. You can Google him. He invested in Amazon. He was on the board of Amazon. Anyway, and he was the chairman of Kleiner Perkins, which is one of the biggest VC firms in the Valley. And so with this money, what we did is that we had to find product market fit. Product market fit means very hard to define, but basically when you know, like, people are interested in buying your thing. So there is some interest, you know, there's something happening. And so we got to product market fit. So in our case, it was very funny because we got to product market fit this way. So our curve just did this, which means that the number of users were flat and then just spiked very high. And that is when we released it. I mean, the team that does customer service can tell you we're replying to thousands of people per day. And then, you know, you need to show that you're able to get customers. And so and you need like a lot, like really a lot of people. And so basically you usually can raise your Series A after $2 to $4 million revenue. And you need to show a real spike. Like the higher the spike, the more investors you get, and the more money you get. And so we just raised our Series A. We raised $13 million a few weeks ago. And we raised with the best VC firm in the world. We raised with Sequoia. Making Moss, as me, also as the Tunisian founder, one of the first absolute founders who had Sequoia. Sequoia invested in, thank you very much. Sequoia invested in everything, you know, actually everything in your phone, from YouTube to Instagram to Cisco to LinkedIn to PayPal, and most importantly, Apple and Slack and Stripe, and not Slack, Stripe, and all of those, Zoom. And we made our round. Actually, the founder of Zoom is an investor in Moss. So Eric Yuan is one of our investors.
Very, very congratulations on this great event. And I imagine you guys are super happy, but also very, very overwhelming as well. I imagine I imagine it comes with a lot of lots of milestones to accomplish and a lot of responsibilities. So Amira, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna start taking some questions because we got a lot of we have quite a bit. So I'm gonna try to go ahead. So everybody is kind of asking about first of the question is, how did you convince investors with just a prototype, and how did you get that first seed? You told us about the story, you told us about the founders. So what do you think makes a convincing pitch to investors enough for you to start raising that first seed round to build the dream, like you said?
So yeah, I mean, so actually the first investment was not with a product. I had nothing. I had a deck. So we raised the first 1.7 million with the deck, and it was just the power of convincing. You know, like I think it was. This is not humble, but it was basically founder fit with the idea. I think that was a big belief in me. I could do this, right? And I think when you talk to, I mean, I pitched Garrett, and who founded Uber? You know, this guy changed the world as we see it and as we know it. And these are founders who know what big ideas, when they are executed, can mean, and are able to invest in that. And I mean, my whole life I'll be grateful for that. But I also got a lot of help from Khaled, who helped make the story, who pitched me more than anything, which is like, yeah, she will be able to understand the country and to build.
So, I mean, what you're saying is actually the role of mentors is actually very important, and having support and finding the right support group is important.
Always easier when someone believes in you. You know, I had mentors in everything in my life. I would have never been here if someone else didn't bet on me when I was nobody. I mean, I did not become the co-chair of Davos because Davos Googled me online. You know, I became co-chair of Davos because there's another Tunisian who used to work for Davos who said, you need to get her, you know, and that's Nadia. And she became my co-founder at Al-Bawsara. So yeah, always have a mentor. But then the thing is that then I stopped. I didn't raise. I had enough money to build my MVP, which is a prototype, basically. And then I had to prove that, yeah, I'm not an engineer, but I actually am head of product. So all the designs at Moss and everything is like the flows, how it works and everything, I've done them, but I have no background in there. I was just, as I said, you need to put in the hours. I was learning while doing, while failing, while doing it again, while understanding, etc. So, and then I raised the rest of the money on the MVP. That in my case was not that of an MVP. It was already pretty amazing product.
Okay. Very, 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 very insightful indeed. We can't escape this question. Obviously, we're with a pandemic. And so COVID has impacts, not only I imagine in the sector that is education, and you probably have repercussions and you're probably thinking ahead of what's happening, but also managing your team. Like you said, like before we had the talk, you have over 14 nationalities from different countries and people working remote. How do you manage this as a leader? How do you bring them together? And how can you make them see the positivity, and how do you manage?
Yeah. I mean, I need to ask the team if they think I manage well or not. Listen,
you can put it in the chat below.
Transparency first. I put the team in a call and I said, we have money in the bank. No one is going to lose their job. And now we have the responsibility to really serve our students that we actually call into. In Moss, we're not allowed to say things like selling, and we call it care and respect. So we need to care and respect our students, and basically just being transparent about what's going on. Also, how lucky we are. Like, don't take it for granted that we're a fancy startup that has money in the bank. Like, you need to understand that compared to any other company, I mean, companies are falling one after the other. Most companies don't have money in the bank. the best companies are laying off 60% of their teams. It's absolutely shocking what's happening in here. What is amazing is that people don't care. Like they will build again. They don't care. I mean, people put on their LinkedIn that they got laid off because of COVID-19, but I'm still good. Please hire me, you know? And there is something about that in the culture here where it's not the end of the world. Of course, you can lose your job and then you'll do it again. Fine. You know, it's not, there's no humiliation in there. But it's terrible. I mean, people are losing their jobs. People are losing their houses and losing everything. And our students are losing their jobs. Actually, that's another thing that we're not talking about. But here's what is very hard. Raising is very hard because even though VCs are telling everyone that they keep doing deals, they're not. Very few deals are being made, and if before COVID-19 you needed to get an 8 on a 10 to get investments, today you need to get a 14 on a 10 to get investments. So you need to be absolutely mind-blowing tech-wise, product-wise, and story-wise. But what is happening really is it's bringing entrepreneurships to its real essence, which is actually entrepreneurship is to start doing something without money and struggle for it and then get the people to pay for it instead of get the VCs to pay for it, you know? So I actually think it is healthy because many people are not meant to be entrepreneurs and they think it's fun to be, and they will be actually miserable in their life. And I think, and others just cannot not be, you know, and they are usually the ones who you will see struggling, but happy. Like for nothing in the world, they would take a job, you know, and I personally, like I used to make this joke with some friends, which is, I always knew that I had to build stuff because I don't think anyone can hire me. And if they hire me, they will fire me after 2 days. So like I was just doomed for that.
So actually, it's very interesting what you said. So a recent study from Startup Genome, which is an office that does surveys across startups, actually said 42% of startups globally have 3 months of runway or less. So actually, fundraising is actually very hard, and it's actually harder, and it's becoming a bit more crucial. And then 58% of startups have had to terminate full-time employees. So I'm pretty guessing like the people at Moss.com are pretty happy to be working and still caring for startups. For students, yeah. And I think it's a general. I mean, everybody is affected currently.
I mean, of course, when your company literally goes from, I don't know, 50 million revenue to 0 in a month, you know, you're counting on that millions to pay people. Like just from a month to another, you have nobody you can sell to, and you have no cash to pay people. So then you need to lay off, you know, it's, and it is going to become very complicated to find a job in the coming months, you know, so if you have a job, keep it.
We have a couple of questions. So a lot of our viewers apparently are students. And they're actually, all of these people are currently finishing up their studies, but are actually thinking about becoming entrepreneur. And they identify themselves with what your story. What would be your advice? What do you think is the full stack that is needed to become an entrepreneur, as you say, or what was your full stack? What tools were you using? What helped you in kind of saying, okay, I'm ready to make that push and start?
Okay, this is a very good question, and this is very important. So first of all, you don't need to be the entrepreneur. You can be the CTO, you can be the engineer, you can be the designer, you can be the head of product. So not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. It's actually looks the coolest job, but it's actually probably the least cool among all the jobs. It's just fun in the seed round, but then you're basically managing people. So unless you love managing people and managing stuff and spreadsheets, you might want to do something else. And I actually think that in Tunisia, I mean, in the Middle East, I know this is larger, but I know Tunisia very well. So that's maybe why I'm saying it over and over, is focus on the skills. And so we just hired the last 2 months, 8 people in Tunisia, okay? And they can all, and some of them are here, you can put on the QA your response. We never asked for their degree. Actually, was thinking about it this morning with my husband. I was like, oh, I never asked for their degree. Like, I have no clue what is their degree. I mean, we asked because it's fun. Like when you ask someone, what did you do? They say, oh, I did this. But we don't care. No one cares about your degree. It's terrible to say, but unless you want like a real job, but in the startup world, no one cares about your degree. And you can have an insane degree, but you're not good. So it's all about the skills, how good you are at the job. That's the only thing that matters. And the team in Tunisia remembers that we hired them over an exercise. So we send them something to do, like at home to do. And then we literally ranked them from 1 to, we had like 300 people who applied. We ranked them from 1 to 300 and how good they did at the at-home exercise. The second thing that we ranked was how fast did they return it. We told everyone that they had 24 hours to send it back. Everyone who sent it after 24 hours, we said, no. And they were like, thank you, but no, we hired other people. So anyone who was like 24 hours 01, we did not reply. We did not took those. The third is then we were counting literally by minutes. We have like a spreadsheet, which is who returned the fastest. And she's actually here. Noor is the one who returned her exercise the fastest. It was like, what the hell? It was so well done and so attention to detail. So it's only about like what we want to judge is how amazing you are at the job. And then your job is basically proving month over month that you're good at it. It's not because you got in, you're going to stay forever. We all work at will. I personally work at will, which means that I can be fired every single day. And the whole team is the same. It's like you're good, you stay, you're bad, you leave. And I think so that second thing is if you pick so as a CEO, if you are the founder, you want to be T-shaped. What does it mean? T-shaped means that you're good, for example, at design, but also at finance, at fundraising, and at HR, or at tech, or whatever. And you have a spike, so you have a T. So there is one thing where you're very good at, and you're technical about. So in my case, it's product, and probably fundraising and management. In other cases, you can be like a technical founder, which is like you're good at engineering. You're the CTO. So you always want to be a T-shape. If you are a technical person, if you want to become a CTO, you need to be I-shaped. So you need to be very deep at whatever you're doing. And that means that you're not learning from your school, because you never learn the future in school. You're learning the past. So it's cool, it's good. Your parents will be happy you have a degree. It's amazing. It's a fulfillment. But most importantly, it's actually an experience. But what you're learning at school is not enough. Open your computer and YouTube the hell out of YouTube. Everything is in there. And learn how what are the stacks used? I remember when we were like using Zoom, most of the team had no clue how to use Zoom, Zoom is the thing you need to learn. Slack, Asana, blah, 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 all of those, you need to try and know that those are the tools that people are using. And, just follow TechCrunch or something, and you will know about all of this.
So perfect. So a lot of questions. Thank you. That's very insightful. And especially saying that obviously school is not necessarily the most important thing in defining your career or success in career. Entrepreneur can be an entrepreneur within a company as well, is what you're saying. It's very interesting as well. And knowing what your path is and being constantly curious is very interesting. So maybe a last questions and it's mostly related to team and actually and what you need to strive for. And so the question is, how did you build that team? How did you get so many very smart people? How did you convince them? And how did you build those first co-founders and that team that you're so proud of and that you're keeping? What is the things that are most important to you? And when do you know you can partner up with that person? And what are the key ingredients?
Yeah. There are, I would say, two things. One is everything technical. You need to really be good at your job, but that doesn't get you inside the team. It's actually simple. You need to want to work with those people. I am at the office all day long. I don't want to hang out there with people I don't want to see. You know, I wake up every morning with those people. So I need to be happy to be with them. And that means that as a founder, you need to know what's your personality and who are the people you work with the best. This is a mistake I did at Al Bawsala. At Al Bawsala, I used to be like very, yeah, you should hire all types of people and la 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 la. But some was just not, I couldn't work with, you know, and unfortunately they had to work with me, and it was not a fun experience for them, neither. So in here, what I did is that I put the things that I love in people and I want to have in my colleagues, and I just search there. And then I do something which is we interview people together. So I do an interview, but for example, all the Tunisian team has been interviewed by Kevin, my colleague. It's not me. I was not in charge of choosing the people. And we do that because we want the match not to be only with me, but with the culture. And the culture is more than the CEO. And so in that case, so for me, probably, so apart from the technical skills, which need to be on top, I think the second most important thing for me is energy, like positive energy. You need to be fun to work with. Like I cannot work with serious people. It's just because I'm not, as you can tell. And so to be fun and good energy, like positive energy, do not be like up and down too much, which happens to everyone, but just not be a surprise every morning. You know, I like some consistency is amazing.
Perfect. I think we wrapped up. There's so many questions, Amira. So I think I'm gonna have to share some of them, and we're gonna run through them. There's a lot of different questions.
Anyone who asked a question and I didn't respond to, you can go on my Instagram and send me there.
So you can go on Instagram. Perfect. So I would like to just remind everybody. So Amira, founder of Moz.com, just recently closed a round with Sequoia Capital, one of the largest VC firms, a Series A. So we're all very proud of you, and we need kind of these good news, good vibes during this kind of period. Maybe any final remarks before we close this webinar?
Final remarks is, let me think a little bit. So first of all, I think that we from the Middle East need to do an insane work on how we think about the world, which is the world is against us. It is not. Most of the world actually doesn't even care that we exist, which is good, because then you can play. The second thing is that everything is accessible. There is no excuse why you cannot. Everything is accessible. You don't need fundraising to succeed. You don't need to go to Harvard to understand how the world works. You don't need to be in San Francisco to build a company. All of that is good to have, but is not necessary to have. Third is the game is in your computer. And if you have Wi-Fi, you have no excuse. So if you want to do anything and you have a computer, you're good. You're good to go. And if you're here, that means you have Wi-Fi and a computer. So you're good to go. And the third thing is delete Facebook. Delete your Facebook. Just delete it. It is, stop wasting your time in there and focus. There is way many more fun things to do and use, and learn, be curious, be hungry, and just like my handles on social media are Mira, MIRA404, and you can reach out to me. I'm very happy to help any person from the Middle East with here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amira, for this great webinar. Hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Tarek. And we are reading someone's email.
Thank you both very much. That was very, very interesting. I personally enjoyed listening to it. And I look forward to next week's fourth webinar with Marie, our managing partner from Flat6Labs Cairo, and Mike, the CEO of Visible, a reporting tool. And have a good rest of the week.
Thank you so much, Tara, for having us. It was fun.
Signing off, Amira. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.